Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be letting go of a good relationship when your goals aren't aligned. So, this particular emailer, he says he's read 3% Man countless times over the years. And he's asking about my girlfriend from the UK that I discussed in the book and how I handled it, or how we handled it when we broke up, because she was going back to school and I was starting my new business. Quite frankly, I wasn't ready to get married. It wasn't a point in my life at that time where that was a consideration, just because I had started a completely new business. I had basically destructed my old life. And so he's got something similar going on. He's got his girlfriend of I gotta say, year or two. He says it's the best relationship that he's had in the last 10 years since his divorce, but now she's moving abroad for 3 years to get her PhD, and he's really struggling because he's like, man, it's the best relationship I ever had. How long is it going to be before I meet somebody else that I click with on that level? So he's having a hard time letting go, and it's never easy to end a relationship, especially when a relationship is going well and you're not having problems like with Katie and I. She came in to visit last year, and those video podcasts that we did with her are in the members area of YouTube and Spotify and on my website, so you guys can watch those, because we had a lot of viewer questions. People always ask, hey, you ever going to bring any of those old girlfriends from your book on? And so we had her on last year, and everybody really enjoyed those podcasts to get her perspective on things. Because it's not easy. It's not a lot of fun to break up with somebody. And even when you're the one doing the dumping, it still sucks. Breakups suck. It's not pleasant. And you just need enough time, because what happens is your whole identity becomes wrapped up in your relationship. And if you're waking up and going to sleep every day together, showering together, grocery shopping, making meals, spending time with friends and family and traveling, and you're pretty much always together, and then all of a sudden that person's not in your life anymore for the most part, or like in our case, she was back overseas and going to school. It's still not easy, especially when we didn't have a bad breakup. Things were going amazing in our relationship, but neither one of us was in a place where we could possibly settle down. I wasn't even ready to, because I just started a new business. I had no idea how long it was going to take. I mean, I was hoping it was only going to take 2-3 years to figure out my new business model and make things work. But, most of the time when you start a new business, it takes way longer than you think to make it successful, and it takes way more money than you think it's going to take. And so if you're going to start a family life, or settle down, or get married, or cohabitate and have kids together, as a man, you got to feel pretty stable in your life. And my life was anything but stable at that time. Everything was in chaos and flux. I was disposing of assets, selling my houses, extra cars, jet skis, boat, pictures, furniture, all kinds of things. So it's not easy to do that. So obviously you guys can see I got the puppies with me, because if I just let them run around the house, they're going to be barking and kind of going crazy every time they hear a noise in the hallway, and I got dogs in the hallway, so trying to keep them calm. And if I just leave them, outside the door, then they're going to be whining like, let us in. So appreciate your patience as we go through it. So let's go through his email and see what's going on with his particular situation. He says, Dear Coach Corey, like countless men who've written to you before, my life has been invaluably improved in so many areas due to your books, especially when it comes to women. I found your work roughly 6 years ago and reread 3% Man countless times. Ocean, who is the girl, she gets a little feisty. If he gets a little too in her face, she's like, arr. So, anyways, back to our email before we were so rudely interrupted by the puppies. So he says, I found your work roughly 6 years ago and reread 3% Man countless times. It's made me the kind of man that other men and women come to for advice in their relationships. As you say, know the material so well you could teach a class on it. Yeah, because when you know it that well, it's instinctual. You don't really have to think about it. You just know what to do. Oh, don't be stepping on my keyboard, buddy. I just had a personal question for you about when you went through a phase of your life you mentioned in the book. The relationship where she moved abroad and you had to end the relationship because you were not going to follow her. Yeah, there was never any discussion that I was going to live in Europe. I mean, she loved the United States. If anything, she still does, absolutely loves America. So there was never any discussion about me moving and following her to college or anything like that. So I don't know where he got that. Because this guy says he's read the book countless times, then he would know the story if he actually read it countless times. That's why I was kind of breaking his balls a little bit. He says, I find myself faced with that situation now where the woman I've been seeing for last year is moving abroad to do her PhD for 3 years. The emotional turmoil of knowing I need to love her in the way she feels free to pursue her dream. It conflicts with my absolute love for this woman, who has been the best partner and relationship I've had in a decade of dating since my divorce. As you always say, it's not every day a woman comes along and just knocks your socks off. Being a 3% man, it was effortless with her. I'm curious how you manage to deal with the harsh reality that we don't always get to keep the love we find, especially when it's the best you've experienced. When someone matches you physically, emotionally, and intellectually, how do you bring yourself to accept that you had to let this woman go? Well, a big part of, especially you guys that are familiar with me, there's a lot of stuff in all of my books about not being attached. If you guys ever just studied the Tao or Buddhism, that's one of the things of the human condition is learning to let go of things. And especially I'm 54 now, the older you get, just things are going to happen. You're going to lose people unexpectedly. Like earlier this year, we lost our beautiful Sonny. He ran out of the street, ran over by a car and got killed in a very gory way in front of my former girlfriend. And so now we got these 2 little fur babies that kind of took his place. And it's one of those things. It's like he's a poodle. Dude's going to live 20 years, 21 years. The poodle I had growing up lived till, I think it was like 21 or 22 years. And Sonny was only 4. And so those things suck. And it's like when you hear something like that or it happens, it's heartbreaking. And it's like you just have to be present with the pain. You can't run from it. The more you try to ignore reality or drugs or alcohol or things to distract yourself, you're basically running from the emotions. And what you resist will persist. And so you have to kind of surrender to the truth that you maybe lost somebody or somebody close to you, or in this case, your goals are not aligned. She wants to go get her PhD, and you are not going to want to date long distance with somebody, especially if I think she's going to another country. I think this guy's in Europe, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was what his email address was, like a UK or South Africa or something like that. I think that's where he at. But the other thing is, if your goals are aligned and she's head over heels in love with you, she's not going to want to leave you to go get a PhD so she can be boss girl. And so even though this guy really loves this girl, I mean, if he's in a place where he wants to settle down and she'd rather go get her PhD, well, then that tells me he's probably projecting his fantasy onto her and kind of ignoring the fact that maybe she's not as into him as he likes to think that she is. Because again, if you're in a place where you're ready to settle down, she's ready to settle down, and she's head over heels in love with you, she ain't going to move away for 3 years to get a PhD. She'd rather be with you. And so that's something that just kind of jumps out at me after I've gone through this particular email here. And so maybe because it's easy and effortless for him, and he's kind of projecting his high interest onto her, but maybe she doesn't really feel that way. Because again, like I said, just the way his recollection of what's in my book and the story is not actually what actually happened. There was never ever a discussion of me following her to Europe. It's just that I was starting a new business and I wasn't ready to get married. And what was interesting for my situation was that I'd been in the same situation a decade before with my ex-wife. I wanted to move to Orlando, and she's like, well, I'll only move with you if we're engaged. And I was like, well, I'm not really ready to be engaged or get married yet. But I didn't want to lose her. And I was afraid if I did move and I didn't get engaged to her, that she would just start dating somebody else. And maybe the next person that came along wouldn't be as amazing as her. But internally, it just didn't feel right. I wasn't in a place in my life where I wanted to get married, but I went along with it because I let all the women around me that I worked with and female friends and be, you just got cold feet, Corey. That's all it is. I'm like, yeah, I'm 24. It's like, I'm not ready to get married yet. It's like, this is the first real girlfriend. Oh, don't be silly. It'll go away. Your feelings will change as you're together longer. I was like, yeah, it doesn't really feel like that. But what did I know? I didn't have a good example at home or in anybody in my family that had a relationship that I wanted to emulate. So I went along with it because I was afraid of losing her. And in reality, I committed to a marriage that I should have never committed to. It didn't feel right internally, but I talked myself into it, and I allowed other people around me to talk me into it because a lot of them are older. And so what happens in those situations is that all of us, it's like people that are married, they want all of their single friends to get married. People that are single want their married friends or their friends in relationships to be single so they can go out and do single fun things, chase girls, whatever it happens to be. And so everybody's trying to validate the way that they live through other people and the choices they've made through other people. And if you can get other people or convince other people to live like you or to be like you, that validates your life choices. And it makes you feel good about the things that you've decided to do. It's the same thing when you start becoming really successful and you start maybe leaving some of your childhood friends behind or people that you grew up with or people that you're close to because they're not really supportive and they kind of become nasty. And it's like they want you to be happy and successful as long as you're not happier and more successful than them. And so it just boils down to like, where are you at? And it's just the worst thing in the world to end a relationship. Even our marriage is like, my wife and I, we got along fine. But it's like emotionally and internally, it just didn't feel right. A lot of times I remember telling her, it's like I kind of felt like I was married to a sister. And it's not fun to tell your wife things like that after you've been married and you've gone through an expensive wedding and all your friends and family are there, and then once you do leave, you got to what happened? It's like, you guys were only married a year, like what? And then you got to explain the story to everybody, and it's like it's not pleasant. There's nothing fun about that. But what you have internally is the hope that something better is going to come, because what I found in life is that, as the old saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. And so in this particular case, it's like if this guy's ready to settle down and be with his girl, he's like, I don't want you to go and get your PhD. It's like, I want you to stay with me and let's build a family and a life together. But if you'd rather go be a boss girl and get your PhD, it's like, I can't follow you on that path. I don't want to do that. That's not my life path. It's like, things have been so great with us. I want to settle down and get married. That's where my head's at. And if you'd rather go and pursue a career, then obviously you're not the right girl for me to settle down and get married to. So I'd rather, it's unfortunate, but we have to part ways because I don't want to do a long distance relationship for the next 3 years with you being halfway around the world or wherever it is that she's going to end up going to get her PhD. And so I'd say, just after reading this, it's like I think he's only really paying attention to his feelings and his interest in her and kind of ignoring the fact that she would rather move away and go get a PhD than stay with him. Because if a girl's head over heels in love with you, she's not going to want to break up. She's not going to want to move away to be a boss girl. And like for me, part of with Katie was that I wasn't in a stable place. And I was just not able to settle down. And I couldn't give her any assurances that I was ready to do anything like that. And so naturally, she continued to pursue her career and her interests. And plus, both of us going through Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership and all that stuff back then, both of us were in a transition period in our life. And we went through this amazing transition period together in both of our lives. And then once the transition was over, then it's just our goals were not aligned at that particular time. And it's not easy, but it's like, as the days go by, it's like, having these two little fur babies here and getting to spend time with them. It's like, I still miss Sonny. I still think about him. And, but these being with somebody new, having new puppies, it helps. You're going to lose your parents. You're going to lose your close friends. I've lost so many people over my life. And that's the thing. As you get older, you realize it's like we're all, if you ever saw the original Titanic movie in the 90s that James Cameron did, and you see that part where Jack and Rose are on the stern of the ship as it's going under, and then there's people that are a little further down that are getting to the water first and drowning or dying or ended up in the cold water. We're all on a ship that's sinking, and it's just some of us are going to go under earlier than others, and that's just life. And so you might as well enjoy the ride down into the abyss and be grateful that you have time with the people when you have time with them, but also look to the future with positive expectation. Again, when one door closes, another one opens. But what makes breakups really hard is your whole, like I said at the beginning of the video, your whole identity becomes wrapped up in everything you do with that person. Then also the next day they're not there anymore, or you can no longer pick up the phone and call your mom and say hi or tell her that you love her because she's gone, or your best friend, or your dad, or maybe one of your kids. I had an email I did many years ago, probably 8-10 years ago, for a father who was a big follower of my work, and his son had died unexpectedly, and he was just so torn up about it. And I remember he was talking about the funeral. It's like hundreds of people showed up for his son. I was like, that's amazing. Your son was such an amazing man that hundreds and hundreds of people showed up to his funeral just to pay their respects because they loved him and they missed him. It's like, as a dad, to create another human that many people loved, it's like, that's pretty impressive. So there's nothing to feel bad about. I mean, obviously, you've lost your son. That's horrible. It's not, I wouldn't want to go through something like that. It's like, I can't imagine what something like that is like. But I know what it's like to lose somebody really close to you. I lost my mom. It's been 20 years since she passed away. It was 20 years this past June that I found out that she had passed away. And it's, as time goes by, it's like the same thing. All my grandparents are gone. It's just, as time goes by, you realize again, it's like being on the stern of the Titanic. We're all on the Titanic. It's all going under. Some of us it's going to happen sooner than others. And it's like, so what can you do about that? It's like life is a big tragedy anyways. So all you can do is accept it and enjoy the ride down because it's not going to last. So try to have fun until it's over. And in this particular case, it's, if this woman would rather go get her PhD than stay with you and build a life and a family together, well, then obviously she's not as into you as you thought she was. And so maybe, you got to do some reflection, and because it's like you always got to see reality as it is, not better than it is or worse than it is. I suspect that he's probably seeing this relationship in reality as better than it is if she would rather move away and pursue a PhD and leave her relationship with him behind. So it's like if he really wants her to stay, it's like, I want you to stay because I want to continue what we have together. But if you'd rather go pursue your career and let our relationship go, then, well, obviously the relationship's not that important to you. And I'd rather not be with somebody who doesn't value our relationship as much. If you'd rather go move away and go back to college and get a PhD, then I'd rather find as painful and difficult, as unpleasant as that may seem, I'd rather go find a woman who would do anything to avoid something like that. She'd rather stay with me. And so, I don't know what kind of conversations he's had, but he's like, well, I don't want to stand in the way of your career. You can say that, but at the same token, you also got to speak up for yourself and what you want. It's like, I don't want you to go. I want you to stay with me. But maybe he's not in a place where he wants to settle down. It's just that their circumstances are she's going to move away, But maybe he's kind of in a similar situation like I was with Katie, where as painful as it was, as unpleasant as it was, we got along fabulous. I mean, everybody commented like the chemistry is off the charts between her and I, a decade and a half after we were together last. And so it's hard to let people go like that. But when you love somebody, when you really, truly, deeply love somebody, you want them to be happy, even if it's no longer with you. And so you got to tell this girl, if that's what you want her to stay, tell her. And if she'd rather leave and go pursue her PhD, well, then maybe he hasn't read the book countless times like he claims to, because if she's a normal, healthy woman and he was applying it, it's like she's not going to go anywhere if he really wants her to stay. Because Katie and I had a lot of serious conversations about that. We even looked at her going to a college in Orange City, Palmer Chiropractic, which is I think it's the top chiropractic school in the world. But it was going to be very expensive, and they were not going to transfer a lot of her college classes that she took in the UK. So that was going to add another 1.5 to 2 years of course load. And I wasn't in a position where I could afford that. And again, I wasn't ready. And because she was from the UK, unless she became a full-time student, it's like I just wasn't ready, and I wasn't in a place where I was ready to commit to be all in with her and I as a family and a team. That's what it boiled down to. And maybe that's the place where this guy is at. But it's like, if you want this girl to stay, you got to tell her. Then you got to move forward. But if you're not ready, then yeah, you got to let her go and wish her all the best, and understand that you're still higher up on the stern of the Titanic, and so you got time. You got time to find somebody else. So what if it takes you another 10 years or 5 years or whatever? It's like you just never know when somebody amazing is going to walk into your life. But I've just found that the right person always comes along, or the right group of people comes along, or the right business opportunity. When you're open to it and you're really truly ready for it, it just shows up in the most weird and magical and unexpected, serendipitous way, synchronistic way. And that's the magic and the beauty of life, because we never know when it's going to end, and all we really can do is enjoy it while we're here and love the people around us and contribute to the people around us. And if your goals and values are truly aligned, you're not going to be able to get rid of them. They're not going to want to go anywhere. So this guy's got some reflection to do. He probably has to have some more serious conversations, but it's just time and repetition. And partly the other thing is he's kind of in a little bit of a scarcity mindset, because as hard as it was for me to let Katie go, it's by that point I understood the stuff that I wrote in my book backwards and forwards and didn't have to think about it. And so as unpleasant as it was, I knew that eventually I would find and attract somebody else. And I've had several great relationships since then that have been wonderful and have been magical. And it's like, my life has been really charmed. It's like, I'm one of those guys that I checked all the things off my bucket list in my early 30s. And so everything that's happened since then is like, it's fucking gravy to me. I did all the material things. I traveled all around the world. I had killer businesses, nice cars, nice houses, influential, powerful friends, successful friends, people that you would know if I mentioned their names. And it's like, so the way I look at it is, man, life, I've been really blessed. So I don't have any regrets in life. So there's just a little bit left to this particular email. He says, I'm curious how you manage to deal with the harsh reality that we don't always get to keep the love we find, especially when it's the best you've experienced. Well, again, when one door closes, another one opens. When someone matches you physically, emotionally, and intellectually, how do you bring yourself to accept that you had to let this woman go? It's just time. And then as soon as you meet somebody else, it's like, all that goes away. I keep busy. I train 4 to 5 days a week. I run a successful media agency. I have women check me out and flirt with me often. And I don't doubt for a moment that I could find another attractive woman to date should I choose. But I don't even care about all that, because it took me a decade to find a woman like her, and it's unlikely another one will come along tomorrow. I honestly don't want anyone else. How do you do it? It's part of life. You have an attachment to it. And the reason when we want reality to be other than it is, we're going to suffer. And that's part of what's going on is you have this identity and this reality of your life as it is, and that's all coming apart. And the reason you're suffering is because you're holding on to something that's dissolving. And, once things have completely dissolved and you have enough time to heal, it's the best thing is to get back out there. Right. Do all the exercises in the book. Write a list of what you want. And probably maybe one of the things is that it's nice to have a woman that's successful and smart intellectually, but her goals have to be aligned with your goals. And in this particular case, her goals are not. And so if your goals aren't aligned, then it doesn't matter anyways. You're not really a match as much as you may love her and feel good feelings for her and feel love for her. Your goals are not in alignment. It's like, so the relationship's not going to work anyways. And so that's part of life. It's letting go and trusting the process. Trusting that you're going to meet somebody else on a long enough timeline. And if you're watching this video, it means you're still here. It means you haven't completely gone under yet on the stern of the ship. And so look around in the stern of the ship and see whatever cute girls are hanging out there with you. And have a few more love stories and enjoy your life, because it's not going to last. Everyone you love, everything you build, it's all going to turn to dust. That's all you can really do. It's just, that's the difficult thing about life, but it also helps you mature when you learn to let go of things. And a big part of my journey in 3% Man was learning to let go of fantasies, learning to let go of ideas that really weren't my own, that society taught me around women and how men are supposed to act to attract and keep the women that they want. And you guys that are familiar with the book know that what society teaches us and what actually works are two completely different things. And so my whole book was it was shedding all of these aspects of who I used to be, so the person I really was on the inside can feel comfortable enough going through life and being and playing full out. And damn the torpedoes, damn the consequences. And if people don't like it, well, as the late great Steve McQueen said, I live for myself and I answer to nobody. That is the true measure of a free, independent human being that is self-reliant. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I am the one that is driving this ship, after all. Even though the ship is slowly going under and slowly sinking, you can have fun until it's your turn to go under. So if you guys haven't already signed up for our paying members only content, in the video description of this video, there are links to join on YouTube, to join on Spotify, and preferably for you guys to join on our website, understandingrelationships.com. Click the plans tab. And so every week you get 6 additional paid members only video newsletters similar to this one. You get the weekly 3% Man study group podcast, the weekly Mastering Yourself study group podcast, and obviously the full viewer questions podcast and any other special interviews that are for paying members only. And on my website, you can do a 7-day free trial with a monthly or an annual plan. And if you choose an annual plan, at the end of 7 days, you get a 25% discount for paying the whole year up front for the annual plan. And that way, with a 7-day free trial, you can check out what content you get. Whereas YouTube or Spotify, you just have to join to get access, or it's a monthly basis on those two platforms. Again, the links to join, whatever platform you want to join on, there are links in the video description of this video that you can just click and it'll be taken right there and sign up. And we appreciate you guys joining on this continuing journey. And if you got a question or a challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen on any page of my website, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.